The examination hall stretched across 300 meters of polished obsidian floor. Its ceiling lost somewhere in the manufactured twilight above. 73 cadets from 42 different species stood in perfect formation, their breathing apparatus, thermal regulators, and gravity compensators humming in discordant symphony. Instructor Vexus Thorin moved between the rows with practiced grace, his 6 crystalline eyes scanning each recruit with the patience of someone who had conducted this ritual for 3 centuries. The puzzle box rested in his primary manipulator, a cube of interlocking metals that seemed to shift and breathe with its own alien geometry. Light played across its surface in patterns that hurt to observe directly. This was the final test of the Galactic Military Academy's logic and reasoning assessment. No cadet had ever solved it in less than 4 hours. The record holder, a Kravik mathematics prodigy, had taken 3 hours and 47 minutes. Most gave up after 6. Vex Thorin reached the human. Marcus Webb stood at attention, his plain cloth uniform looking almost primitive among the advanced fabrics and energy shields worn by his peers. He was young by human standards, barely 23 rotations, with dark hair that refused military regulation and eyes that held an unsettling intensity. The other cadets had learned to give him space. Humans were new to the galactic community, their planet having achieved faster-than-light travel only 18 years prior. They were regarded with curiosity, sometimes pity, occasionally fear. Their homeworld was classified as a Category 9 death world, a designation reserved for planets so hostile that survival itself was considered an extreme sport. Vexus Thorin extended the puzzle box toward Marcus. The human's hand moved before the instructor had finished the gesture, fingers already tracing the surface, thumb pressing against a seam that most species could not even perceive. Click. The first lock disengaged. Vexus Thorin's primary eyes widened. That should not have been possible. The initial mechanism required understanding 17-dimensional mathematics and the application of pressure at precisely calculated intervals. Marcus rotated the box, his movements fluid and certain. His fingers found purchase points that doctoral candidates in xenoengineering spent months learning to identify. Another section slid smoothly aside. Click, click, click. 3 more locks opened in rapid succession. The hall had gone silent. Even the environmental systems seemed to hold their breath. Cadets turned their heads, sensors and ocular stalks toward the human, watching with mounting disbelief as the impossible unfolded before them. Vex Thorin stood frozen, all 6 eyes locked on Marcus's hands. The human had not even glanced at the box. His gaze remained fixed on the middle distance, his expression neutral, almost bored, as if his hands operated independently from his conscious mind. Marcus tilted the cube 45 degrees. Something inside clicked into alignment. He pressed 3 points simultaneously, each requiring exactly 17.3 newtons of force. The box's core began to glow, its internal mechanisms visible now through gaps in its surface. 15 seconds had elapsed since Vexus Thorin had offered him the box. The final lock was the cruelest. It required the solver to recognize a pattern that existed outside of normal space-time perception, a test designed to challenge even species with natural temporal sensitivity. The Kravik prodigy had wept when she finally understood it. Marcus pressed his palm flat against the top surface and twisted counterclockwise while simultaneously compressing the sides. The box sang, a single pure note that resonated through the examination hall like a bell tolling in vacuum. The puzzle box opened. 22 seconds. Total. Marcus held the opened box toward Vexus Thorin, its crystalline heart pulsing with soft blue light, then turned toward his designated station and sat down with mechanical precision. His face betrayed nothing, not pride, not satisfaction, not even acknowledgement of what he had just accomplished. The examination hall erupted into chaos. Cadets broke formation, voices rising in a dozen languages and communication methods. A Threndax fainted, its carapace clattering against the obsidian floor. 2 Valoran diplomats began arguing whether what they had witnessed constituted cheating or divine intervention. Vexus Thorin's primary mind struggled to process the implications while his secondary mind replayed the sequence again and again. His tertiary mind was already composing the report he would need to file with the Academy Council. A Xinthian cadet named Korvax approached Marcus's station, his sensor cluster vibrating with confusion. "How did you know?" he asked, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "The solution requires understanding principles that humans have not yet discovered. Your species barely comprehends 8-dimensional space." Marcus looked up, and for the first time something flickered in his eyes. Not arrogance, but something older, something that made Korvax take an involuntary step backward. "We're from Earth," Marcus said simply. "We don't need to understand something to figure out how it works." Korvax's sensor cluster dimmed in confusion. "That makes no logical sense." "Exactly." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You're all so advanced, so sophisticated. You map every variable, calculate every probability, understand the deep mathematics of reality." He gestured toward the puzzle box, still glowing in Vexithorin's grip. "That thing was designed by geniuses to challenge geniuses. And you are not?" Korvax's tone bordered on insulting. Marcus smiled, and it was not a comforting expression. "We're mechanics, engineers, survivors. We've spent our entire existence breaking things that weren't meant to be broken, solving problems we didn't understand, and surviving situations that should have killed us 1,000 times over." He tapped the side of his head. "Pattern recognition isn't about understanding the math. It's about feeling how things want to move, where the stress points are, what gives when you push." Vexithorin finally found his voice. "You treated the puzzle box like a mechanical lock." "It is a mechanical lock," Marcus replied. "Just because it uses fancy materials and works in dimensions I can't see doesn't change that. Everything that moves has a rhythm. Everything that locks has a key. You just have to listen." The instructor's crystalline eyes refracted the box's light into rainbow patterns. 3 centuries of teaching. And this human had just invalidated every assumption he had made about intelligence, problem-solving, and the nature of learning itself. "Instructor Vexthorin," another voice called. A Praxian cadet held up her datapad, confusion evident in her bioluminescent patterns. "The examination has not officially started. Are we meant to solve the box again, or has Cadet Webb completed the test for all of us?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Vexithorin looked at the puzzle box, then at Marcus, then at the 72 other cadets who had spent years preparing for this moment. The human had not only solved the unsolvable, he had done it before the test had even begun. "The examination," Vexthorin said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of someone watching their entire pedagogical framework crumble, "will require revision." Marcus Webb said nothing. He simply folded his hands on the desk and waited, patient as stone, while the galaxy's greatest minds tried to figure out what to do with a human who refused to play by rules he had never learned existed.